as I said, we went to Mount Pottinger School. So we had to walk there, so we'd go out of our house and right down the Castlereagh Road and walk right down Temple Avenue. And there was something I was going to tell you about and I've forgotten what it was. Some of the masters were still the same as when my Aunt Emily and Uncle David had been there. They were the youngest of my mummy's family. And some of the masters, but whenever you think about it, you know, they could have been in the job 40 years, couldn't they?
Yeah.
And they could have started off young when...
In their early 20s,
yeah,
I guess.
Whenever
yeah.
Emily and David were there.
Is Emily your mum's sister?
Yeah. George, Emily, David, they were all the young ones, the younger children. So they would have all gone to Mount Pottinger. They all went to Mount Pottinger, but they would have been the ones who the staff remembered, you know, the teachers remembered.
Because I think really the only out of your mum's siblings, I only ever really knew Emily, your Aunt Emily. Would you say you had a better, sort of the most closest relationship with her?
Well, no, my mummy did, because she was her sister, wasn't she? And of course sisters go to see each other, whereas although we used to have, like my Uncle George used to come over with Aunt Lily and my cousins, and Uncle George had Yvonne, David and Rosemary. Yvonne I'm still in contact with. David's the one who played in that band I told you about, and he lives in America.
T-Rex, was it?
T-Rex, yeah. Known as Dave. Yeah, and he lives in Texas, I think it is, or Dallas, somewhere over there. I'm sure they're miles apart, but...
So what happened after you left that school? Where did you go? So
then I took the 11 plus and failed. But I was young enough to take it the following year. So I had 2 chances because of my age. So I suppose I was only 10 or maybe not even 10 when I took it the first time. And then I took it the next year and passed it. And my sister was already at Grosvenor High School. And I then went to Grosvenor High. No, it was then known as Grosvenor Grammar School, I think.
And June was already there?
June was already there. So we used to have to get a bus into the city and then get a bus up the Springfield Road to go to the Grosvenor High School. But when we first started to do it, there were trams that ran up the Grosvenor Road. So that's a long time ago, you know. So the trams would go up there. Yeah. And then when I was 16, I wasn't very academic and I couldn't be bothered to study. I was actually quite a flibberty-gibbet, you know, kind of never thought about anything. And then when I was 16, I left grammar school, I left Grosvenor, and I wanted to go into a shop. I wanted to go into a dress shop. So I had a couple of weeks off, and then I came home one day and my mummy says, "You're starting at Miss Elliott's in the morning." Miss Elliott's was a secretarial college in the centre of Belfast in the town. So there I went the next day. I was sent off to Miss Elliott's to learn shorthand and typing and bookkeeping. Because you did what your mummy told you in those days. There was nothing about it. You just were told what to do and you did it.
And so how long was that? Was that a year or so?
Yeah, well, I think it was a 2-year course, but I left after a year.
Okay.
Because I got the speed. So if you get up to 60 words a minute in shorthand, and I think it's 50 in typing or something, you know, and you get, and a bookkeeping. So I got certificates for shorthand and typing and things. So I went out and looked for a job and went to work at Ulster Pension Trustees in Hard Street, where I must have been a couple of years really. And we used to go out on a Saturday night.
And you were still living at home at this point?
Still living at home. And we got free tickets to go to the plaza to a dance on the Monday night. And we went to this dance in the plaza and I met Peter. Now, what they used to do to get people in on a Monday night was to give free tickets to the military. They'd send them to the barracks and everything, you know. So they all got free tickets if they wanted to come, and they'd come. So Peter had a free ticket to come, and that's where I met him.
Ah. So how old were you then?
17.
I didn't realise you were that young.
Mm-hmm.
Blimey, that's Ted's age.
I know.
So obviously no phones or anything that you can text. So did you just start writing to each other?
No, he made a date, and we met in the city to go to the dance, because he was at Hollywood Barracks, which is on the outskirts of Belfast. So we made a date, and then I met him, had a meet outside Robinson and Cleavers. So I met him, and then we went to a dance, and then I went back home on the bus, and this went on for quite a while. And then he came over on his bike, he borrowed a bike from somebody in the barracks, and biked over and biked back again. It's probably about 10 miles to see me. And he actually had a cousin lived at Dunmurry. He had married an Irish girl as well, but he'd been there in the wartime. And but he, instead of going home to Aylsham, he stayed in Dunmurry, because I think Peggy already had children. From her first marriage, she had 2 boys, and so he stayed in Ireland with Peggy, and then they adopted a daughter, Anne. Yeah.
So so how long did that relationship go on before he was heading back to England?
It was only about a year, I think, before he was demobbed, I suppose it would be, you'd call it. And he was going back to home. So he went back home, and then he came back to Belfast instead with Peggy and Alan, trying to get a job.
Oh.
But at that time, you could get a job if you had a permit. If you had a job and they would sponsor you and you had a permit, you could stay. But if you were just looking for work and didn't have a permit, you couldn't work there. So he had to come back to England. So we started writing for about a year or so. And then the following year, we organised that I would come over and stay at his house for a while, and then get a flat in Norwich. So I stayed in the house that they're in, you know, down in Aylsham in Schoolhouse Lane, and I had a little divan bed in the front room. I can't imagine how I managed to work, get my makeup and all, and my clothes and all the rest of it. But when you're young, you just live out of a suitcase, and you know, you don't care, do you? And then I'd have to get up in the morning and go up to the marketplace and get a bus into Norwich. I had applied for a job. Well, I'd written to the Norwich Union before I went about a job, and they said come and see them when I got over here. But when I did get here, I wish I'd have done that actually, because I could have had long employment with them. But I thought, oh, I'll just look in the paper and find a job at because at that time there were always lots of jobs in the paper, and I got one with Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food at the Veterinary Investigation Centre, which was just opening up on the Boundary Road, Mile Cross Road.
So how did your family feel about you coming to England?
Don't know. I just left.
Did you...
I just said it was coming, and you know.
So then, how long were you in Elsham before you got the flat in Norwich?
Only a few months. Then I got a little bed sitter.
On your own or with Dad?
No, we didn't do that then.
Oh yeah.
Those days. I got a little bed sit in Rosary Road. And yeah. And then what happened after that?